So here we are, the granddaddy of malevolence in its purest gameplay form. Arguably one of the most controversial video game franchises of all time that hit the video game landscape. I'm talking about a little series that made the employees actually sick to their stomach while making this game, while creating this internal divide on the very idea they created. And this, my friends, is Manhunt from Rockstar Games. Before we get into this pipe dream of talking about a Manhunt revival, I'd like to show you exactly why Manhunt unsettled so many individuals when it came out. Huh? Yeesh. This game was made for a pile of sick fucks. Like me. A fine connoisseur of enjoying gore in survival horror video games and horror films in general. Maybe I just know better to distinguish fiction from reality. This game might not have been for the faint of heart, but I fucking loved it. Let's get a little bit into the backstory of Manhunt. Let's talk about some things that led to its conception, and some key points that will follow for why I think it would be fantastic to have this gore-soaked masterpiece return to the modern masses. Manhunt started development in the early 2000s, fresh off the reins of Grand Theft Auto Vice City in 2002. Rockstar North wanted to build a completely new game purely based on Grand Theft Auto's renderware engine. This new concept featured a lot more different implementations from your standard GTA open world experience, like a focus on harsh brutality, stealth elements that were seen in Splinter Cell and Metal Gear, a plot thread that focuses on the sensation of killing and violence actually being a blood sport, and filmed much to the delight of the director. This is a game all about snuff movies. And if you don't know what snuff movies are, that is where people are killed for entertainment. They are killed for amusement. There's also this darkly comic humor in the dialogue, so by the makings of this game, it's already a far departure from the Grand Theft Auto series in terms of tone. Manhunt was released in America on November 18, 2003, and it was met with many favorable reviews of critics enjoying the game's dark elements, the game's dark atmosphere, as well as even praising the frightening premise of the acts you committed. If you haven't noticed by now, this game is pretty much notorious for introducing an element that deemed this game highly controversial, and it's called executions. This means that you can get an item out of the environment and you can pick it up, and it could be either a mere grocery bag or a baseball bat, and you can sneak up on your foes and perform these said executions. The longer you hold down the button, the more the executions start to enter more varying states of violence. One example is the chainsaw. A hasty execution might involve a short 2-second decapitation. A gruesome execution might involve shoving the entire chainsaw down through the human scalp and vertically pulling it out as it destroys the insides. The white executions where you can tap the button might save you some time. However, since you're graded at the end of each level, violence is a factor, and violent and gruesome executions is the way to go as the incentive. Manhunt wasn't a perfect series. The stealth bits were the best part, but in order to break up the monotony, Rockstar decided to implement gunplay, which personally was a mixed bag to me. I do like that Rockstar Games tried to vary everything up by giving you objectives, whether it's mid-level, the beginning mission, or at the end, where you have to kill a certain target, or you have to escort a witness within the stage. However, when you took it to the guns, that's where the game felt like it got worse with this whole action-y segment where you're just running out into the open and you have to take cover, you have to get shot to progress, and it's just a mishmash of trial and error. This did make the game have several high difficulty spikes because of it. The devil was in the details, however. This game got slammed by every offended individual under the sun, and this was one of the many cases that Jack Thompson stuck his big nose in, and Manhunt was even linked to a murder at one point, which was the case with Stefan Perkia in 2004. The Manhunt franchise was naturally banned in several countries including New Zealand, the United Kingdom, South Korea, Italy, and the fucking list goes on, man. Regardless, Manhunt had a sequel, which was Manhunt 2, but the stakes were higher and things were different this time. The blood was more plentiful and the violence was more overt thanks to several new features that were added to Manhunt 2, like the motion controls, the inclusion of new weapons, and new executions. However, in terms of Rockstar getting away scot-free with the M rating, things were definitely different in 2007. Because of the outcry from the first game, Rockstar had to resubmit Manhunt 2 after receiving the dreaded adults-only rating from the ESRB. This meant that Manhunt 2 could not be sold on storefronts unless the game was going to be resubmitted for a heavily censored version. This re-edited M-rated version of Manhunt 2 was released on October 29, 2007 in the US, and it was met with mostly mixed to average reviews. The sequel was not well received due to mostly every element being inferior to the first entry of the franchise, except for the kills pretty much being amplified to the point where genital and eyeball removal executions were actually in the game. That leads us to today, the present. I personally still think that Manhunt is a great horror franchise, despite its dormant nature of today. The psychological elements, the stealth action horror, the sheer sense of dread found within the Manhunt franchise is a breath of fresh air that you mostly don't see Rockstar games tackle. There's a few key points that could signify ways that Manhunt could return or become inspired for new ideas for a sequel. Here's my take on them. Key point number 1 is how will the controversy be bypassed? Now, I know what people are thinking, this must be impossible considering the fact that Manhunt is a series known for high levels of violence. In this day and age, a lot of people who would see that game will probably crucify it due to the extreme offended personalities who have a bigger voice than even most YouTubers. The best course of action is to quite literally not give a good goddamn flying fuck about what any of these naysayers say, make the game you want and release it. Pull a Tobano Itagaki. That man did not give a flying fuck what people thought about DOA when he was working there at Tecmo. Pull a Itagaki, and when push comes to shove, at least release it on PC. PC has a bigger user base these days, and it'll probably stand a better chance at being on PC with a Manhunt 3, considering the fact that Steam Greenlight had Hatred and that had an AO rating not too long ago. Key point number 2, what thematics could be used for a sequel? Thematics are everything when it comes to Manhunt. Atmosphere is everything when it comes to Manhunt. So, you know, they had these callbacks to certain movies like The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where he was being hunted and he was participating in a sport where he had to kill certain people to get out of it. That was the first game, and the second game was a lot more mind-breaking when it came to the premise of it. It was a lot more Fight Club-ish when it came to this whole scenario of what's real or am I insane. This whole style of the plot, it was a lot more psychological based horror. So I think a good theme for Manhunt 3 would be going back to basics with the first game, having a few new additions to the modern horror franchise, and having a combination of maybe like found footage horror as a subgenre. Maybe they could play with the camera a little bit when it comes to executions and weapons that could piece things together to the plot and piece things together to the grisly violence you're actually seeing. It could be some sort of stylistic choice, if you will. That's what I think about this. A lot of people also dislike the fact that Manhunt 2 had this huge emphasis on psychological horror, and it just was inferior to the first game's plot being a lot more straightforward. So I think they need a more straightforward plot that has some layers as it grows and as it develops later on. I think that it should be a lot more visceral in context to what's happening and a lot more visceral in tone to make this the most vicious and violent Manhunt to date. It should be about survival of the fittest with so many layers put on top of it. And here we have the final key point. This is key point number 3, and that is increasing the violence. Now, it's a no-brainer considering what I talked about on key point number 1 about the controversy. If you're going to go adult only, then you should go all out, completely all out. This means that Manhunt 3 should have a true gruesome tale of survival horror where you have to fight for your escape. So that technology that they have now with the Rage engine, that's going to be advanced, and that's going to make human ligaments look so real and detailed. So I'm sure those dreams of either spine ripping, eyeball tearing, or chopping someone in half is going to become a gruesome reality in the Rage engine. Of course, I don't ever see this happening, but Manhunt 3 having that engine for next generation, that would be fucking nuts. Crazy. Quite simply, is going to trigger so many unique and crazy kills in a variety of ways. So the environmental executions, the jump executions, I think those should come back from Manhunt 2. They should keep it very and maybe they should reel in some things like from Tenchu, for example, where you can kill someone from the front. If they turn around, you can kill them really quickly with like a hasty execution in the front, and then maybe you could do like crouch kills, like, you know, you're down and crouched and you can kill them from crouching like you could in Tenchu 2, and maybe some story element kills where there's a guy you gotta assassinate and you can kill him in a very special and unique way compared to the other weapons and executions that you get in the game. So that makes the whole new execution system of having multiple ways to kill people very endless. In closing, I am a true Manhunt fan. I am a true fan of Rockstar Games, and I think anything can happen with Rockstar Games with the direction they go in with their games, and they're definitely no stranger to controversial subjects. So it shows, and they show it in stride when it comes to touching on something thought-provoking or touching on the things that they want to do the most. I think Rockstar Games, they have the balls to get it done. It's just a lot of people that's going to bring down the hammer on them, and I think this is why Manhunt 3 might not happen given the detail in today's games. All these pussified whiners and bleeding heart politicians will bring the hammer down on Rockstar for certain, but I think there's always a possibility for a sequel because Rockstar said themselves in the past it was a quite interesting question when it came to Manhunt 3, and they don't know where the series is going to go. I'm just paraphrasing this, but they said it definitely is going to take some exploring down the road for sure. And this was from an employee from Rockstar, all paraphrased. So the sky is the limit, and I cannot wait to see what happens, but these are just my little predictions of what should be in a Manhunt 3 and some history behind it. Hopefully you learned something. This is Renegade Operative signing off, and hopefully once again you guys enjoyed this video. Sound off in the comments about the things you would personally want in a Manhunt sequel, and once again I cannot wait to hear some feedback from you guys. You guys have been pretty awesome. Take care. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot with the feedback that I'm getting so I can improve and make better videos. This is Renegade Operative once again signing off, and as always, happy hunting.